Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Clinical Edge. Today, I'm joined by Mark Durante, founder of Rize Up Enterprises. Rize Up operates in one of the fastest evolving areas of healthcare, that is, regenerative medicine and biologics. And what makes Mark's story more remarkable is that it's not simply a business for him, because after undergoing a heart transplant himself nearly a decade ago, he turned that life-changing experience into a mission that is helping patients across therapies that could potentially prevent others from facing the same journey. We'll talk a lot on this, but Mark, welcome to Clinical Edge.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And you and I've had some great conversations so far. I'm excited where this is going to go today.
Yeah. So, Mark, let's just start with your journey. Tell us about yourself and your professional journey. I see you were in sales for a long time, but
I
how
was for
did that happen? And then the point that came where you had that heart transplant, and also we'd like to hear a bit more from you on this.
Yes, it's actually an interesting journey because part of it is I started out in accounting and financial planning, but when somebody tells you that you have to stay at your desk all day and just bill hours, it doesn't become very
Oh,
interesting for an extrovert like myself. So naturally, I got called into the aesthetic industry selling all of the laser, radio frequency, and magnetic energy technology. And before the heart transplant, I had been doing that for about 18 years. And much of it spending my time in the medical field, a lot of dermatology, plastic surgery, and med spas. But during that time frame, I was actually dealing with issues where I was getting neuropathy in my feet and my lower legs and couldn't really explain what was going on. And honestly, I didn't even know I had a heart issue. The whole thing there is we're chasing neuropathy, trying to look at it. Is it a genetic thing? Is it a vascular thing? Is it what's going on? When one day I go in for an examination for a peripheral vascular disease, and instead they go, we hear an irregular heartbeat. And I'm like, everyone in my family's got an irregular heartbeat. That's no big deal. And they're like, yeah, but yours is a little bit unique. And so they were like, hey, just do me a favor. Just go see one of my cardiologists, do a baseline. And I agreed. And I walk into that practice. And before I know, I'm walking out in total shock because they just told me my heart was at half function. So here it was just supposed to be a routine baseline. Turns out to be, we want to submit you for a heart transplant. Now, when I met with that team, they were like, no, you could live off of this heart. Maybe not, you're not going to be an athlete again, but you're certainly going to be able to live a comfortable life and we'll manage it with medication. 3 years later, I tank. I walk in with a 5% ejection fraction, and the doctor didn't even know how I could talk to him, let alone walk into the hospital. And when I walked in, I was in the middle of a heart event. So it was crazy. Yeah. It's when you look at this story, there's definitely God all over because people could not figure out the mysteries behind what was happening. And so at that point, I wound up going through about a 10-month journey from having two LVADs all the way into staying in the hospital for 25 days. The doctors coming in and telling me I only had 2 days probably to live, that they were desperate to try and find a heart. And I had to start making end of life decisions because my heart was getting so erratic, even on an LVAD. And the next morning is when I got the call for the transplant. So it was now you fast forward that I'm recovered, I've got life again, but instead the neuropathy is getting worse to a point where I was getting neurological issues all over my body, my hands, my feet, my arms. I couldn't sleep. I was on such high doses of medication. Most humans would not function on that amount. I was doing 675 milligrams of Lyrica, tramadol, and hydrocodone in order to supplement the pain. It was just that massive. And to give perspective, if you've got diabetic neuropathy, most people are taking 100 to maybe 300 milligrams of Lyrica. So I'm taking double the traditional dose of people dealing with severe neurological issues. And that was after going on every other neurological product before. But that's one of those things where I tell everybody I had a conversation with God that was like, is this some sort of sick joke conversation? You survived me of a heart transplant in order to live in major pain for the rest of my life, sitting on a couch watching Netflix. And it was out of that conversation that I wound up having another discussion with an orthopedic that we were doing some work with. His name was Dr. Wade McKenna. And he was a godsend, honestly. It's when you look at this, him and I are just sitting down talking one night at the very end, and he's, Mark, you know what? I think I could help you get this squared away. And he says, if I can't get you all the way, he goes, I can get you at least part of the way. And it was at that point that I jumped in it with him. But like every great thing, sometimes we just hit a plateau. So I hit a plateau on my journey and just so happened to be getting connected with a heart transplant cardiologist who was doing studies on a new acellular stem cell product.
Yeah.
And at that point, I made a shift over to that and got off 100% of my medication. And I would say restored my body maybe to about 95%. But what comes out of that at the same time, and why this became a passion project, is I'm going, I was in medicine for 18 years and didn't even know this was an option.
Wow.
And here I am standing here healed, out of pain, living a much better life. And if I didn't know, how do people who are not in medicine know? Or even those who were like me that were in medicine, how do they know? So that's where Rise Up Medical became founded.
That's what I was going to ask you. First of all, that 2 days thing is really scary when the doctor said 2 days.
Correct.
How did this whole incident change your perspective in your professional life?
So, you know what? It is a lot of it, I think, just comes out of pain comes opportunity, right? So it's when I'm looking at this and I realize there is a disconnect between the therapies, the practitioners, and the patients. And in that period, I was a patient. Even though I was in medicine, nobody's talking about regenerative medicine. So I'm on the patient side. So when I looked at this and I'm sitting down there and you talk to anybody, everybody goes, that's kind of hocus pocus. That stuff's not going to work. And then I have a doctor who is like, hey, I know this stuff works. I've been doing it for 20 years. I've been doing some studies for other practices and getting great results. So at that point, when I went through that journey, it just gave me an aha moment. And at that point, I'm literally going, I'm just not going to listen to traditional medicine. They just don't have their ear on the pulse of what's happening in this industry. And I understand the scientific, we want to see evidence. But a lot of times what they're really saying is, I want to see evidence on your product. The evidence is out there. I jokingly will say to practitioners, I'm like, if you don't believe in stem cells, after you do surgery, how in the world do you think that your body's healing itself? Because once you've left the surgery, you're not playing any part of their healing. So at that part, it is the regenerative part of their body. Now, what we do know about the regenerative part of their body is the fact that it decreases significantly. By the age of 40, you have about 50% of what you had when you were in your 20s. So all that we are really looking to do is supplement back in the loss of that regenerative power so that the body could function the way it is. You take the perfect example of a child. When a child gets cut, you can almost see them grow up and never have a scar in the place that they actually had that major wound. And why is that? Because the regenerative power was so strong in that area or at that age that it was able to heal without scar tissue. But then what happens is the body starts to compensate. So as we get older and you get that same slice, all of a sudden it's, man, I don't really know what to do here. All I'm going to do is just put up this tough scar tissue in order to make sure it doesn't happen here again, right? So there's a lot of things that are happening in the body. The biologics, the signals are not working as appropriately. So there's a lot of things that are going on there. I'm trying to make this more simplified, but the
Yeah.
reality is I'm looking at this and going, I have to play a part on the education side to bring this to practitioners that are open-minded to what's possible, and then also bring the consumer together because we want them to have that conversation with their practitioner and understand what they're talking about. So Rise Up really is about elevating healthcare both at the patient and practitioner level. And now all of a sudden it's explosive. It's becoming one of the biggest industries in the world. So but I was there at a time when nobody wanted to listen.
Yeah.
Now everybody's got their ears to the ground.
Yes, that's amazing. And I hope Rise Up really serves the mission that it's going for. But
Oh,
before we talk more about Rise Up, I want to understand a little bit more on the larger regenerative medicine landscape. Like, how do you see this regenerative medicine industry evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? And what do you think are the biggest gaps or unmet needs today?
you know what? Like when we look at this, the evolution of this, I think is we see pharmacology. So the one thing I always want to make sure people understand when I'm on these podcasts, I'm very pro-regenerative, but I also understand the importance of pharmacology and I'm grateful for it because if I decided to take my medications today after my heart transplant, I wouldn't be here to talk about regenerative medicine. So pharmacology plays a point. But we also know that pharmacology plays a part in blocking signals that are an issue in the body. What we're trying to do with regenerative medicine is provide signals that cause the correct lay down or the correct regenerative processes in the body. So one's blocking, the other one's signaling. And so in that sense here, this is where I think medicine is going to change. And we're watching pharmaceutical industry changing that as well. Just take a look at the GLPs. Those are peptides, and the pharmaceutical industry is jumping all over it. So they definitely understand where this is going. So I think that we're in a great spot. In the next 5 to 10 years, I've just looked over the last 5 years of not being able to have a conversation with practitioners to now having conversations with practitioners all over the place. So I think once we get more adoption, we get more studies, we start getting more FDA approvals, I think we're going to see a totally different game. And I think we're going to see a different patient conversation amongst practitioners as well. Physicians, their Hippocratic oath is safety first, right? So a lot of times they're always going to look to those FDA approval because that's the safety pathway. Now, at the same time, I say this is biologics by a whole are very safe. You're taking them from body to body, but because you're taking them from someone else's, like umbilical cord tissue, that's where the FDA has to step in and go, this has got to be manufactured in a way that's safe. So I get the conversation. We just need to kind of blend those together to where we're all on the same page. And I see that happening.
But what do you see? What challenges do you see in this right now? Is there any challenge in adoption, or is there anything that regenerative medicine is still not able to meet its needs?
Here's the thing too. I think it's going to regulation and money are going to play a key part. The reason why I say that is regulation is so heavy when you're talking about a drug. Just to get a drug through on average costs about 24 million, if not more. And we've seen it up to $50 million and higher than that in order to get a drug placed. But what most people don't realize is the labs that are bringing forth the biologic products are much smaller. They don't have the same monetary capabilities. That's why we're trying to take those initiatives of raising capital in order to bring these things through the FDA so that we can get these type of clearances. But it's not a short process. We have one project that we're trying to bring through right now will probably take 18 months to 36 months. And I will tell you, I think it's going to be more on the 36-month side just because it's something that hasn't been done before. And it could go longer than that. But it is, at the end of the day, we're willing to make the attempt. These labs are really run by a lot of scientists that are building products. They don't know how to raise capital. They don't know how to run out there and create a distribution network. So that's where I feel like our place is that we're working with the lab partners in order to bring this both through the FDA to the physician, to the practitioner. And once we get all this sort of stuff aligned, that's where I think we're going to see some cool things in the next 5 to 10 years.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So Mark, let's talk a little bit on Rise Up now a little bit more. You had an amazing idea. You had a very powerful strategy, and you also developed a lot of skills. But then the most important part is getting it on the ground, building the company. If you could tell us about that journey, because there are a lot of entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs or those who want to be entrepreneurs, they are like watching it, and how would you motivate them that, okay, they might be having a lot of ideas, but how was your journey on putting it on the ground? And
I like this, and I'll take this as an opportunity to get a little bit vulnerable, particularly for those young entrepreneurs, not even young, I would say any entrepreneur. Look, Colonel Sanders was 65 when he became an entrepreneur, so it can be done at any age. But what I will say is this, is that what most people didn't know about my story is that I went from what I felt was like golden child in terms of everything's going great for me to losing everything, to the point in the latter part of my heart transplant, they were raising money to help me survive. So you go from having all kinds of things down to having zero and even negative. So when I jumped in order to do this, part of this takes a passion, right? Because there wasn't a lot of money in order to do this. And I remember, and this is just my story because I'm trying to tell this to my son now who wants to start a business. And I go, I started Rize Up Medical on a tax refund where my accountant had accidentally done my taxes wrong. And I went back, we found the error, and all of a sudden I got $20,000 back that year. And I'm like, you know what? I feel the urge to go out and create another company. And I took that $20,000. And here's the crazy part. It is not easy. But I will tell you, for the person with the strength and the passion in order to drive through, you can break through it all. Because when I started with that $20,000, I almost was out of business before I was in business, because that same year the FDA changed the regulations. The doctors got nervous and pulled back. They didn't want to talk about it any longer for the time being. And so I had to start making mental adjustments in my own business in order to play in different parts of regenerative medicine that the industry was willing to accept at that point. And I didn't get to go at it the way that I wanted to. So one of the things that I tell entrepreneurs all the time is the most important thing that I had to do is how I run through life is I flow like water. I don't try to break through barriers. It's like when water hits a rock, it doesn't stand there and try to pound on that rock. It moves right, it moves left, it moves over. And so at that point, I find that if you eliminate that resistance and you stay open to the alternative, suddenly it moves you in the right direction. And all of a sudden, maybe about a year later, this thing just started to pick up and started to prosper. But it wasn't without fight. And like I said, there were multiple times where I was about out before I was even in. And so now at this point, it's all growth opportunity. So we're past that stage of whether or not we're going to make it. Now it's like, how do we make it the
Yeah.
best, right? So I will say this is it definitely takes grit. If you're listening to those motivational videos out there where they talk about it, there is no easy path. Although I will say artificial intelligence has made it a lot easier to become a part of this industry, a part of just being an entrepreneur. So there is a discussion around AI in healthcare in this same topic. And I think that's going to change the amount of entrepreneurs that enter this business, how healthcare is going to change at the same time, because it's going to lead to a whole nother subset of opportunities. So my other thing is that I would tell people is do not fear AI. I think those that fear AI will be left behind by AI. And trust me, I did it because I was the one that tried to resist social media. And I'm like, hey, if you want to talk to me, I want to talk to you in person. I don't want to hear about what you ate for dinner over some sort of in a picture of it on a social media feed. And I resisted it. I was the one that clamped down. So when AI came around, I was like, oh no, I'm not going to miss this opportunity because now all I do is try to catch up on social media. So I know that spins off a little bit of healthcare, but now we're using AI in terms of growing this business and finding new opportunities and connecting with people in the healthcare space. So it is, I would say it's
Uh,
a
yeah,
symbiotic relationship.
I'll be interested to know what you did over the weekend or the July 4th.
They think I'm crazy because I'm literally building an AI agent as we speak that is doing more work for me than I ever could imagine. And they laugh at me because sometimes I'll sit here with three computers running three different agents at the same time, just trying to keep up.
So yeah, I'm interested to know like how are you using AI? Like how you said about agents. So are they helping you get sales or are they helping you in your research, R&D?
You know what? There's a lot of it. It's helping me from a professional level, getting different analytics that I need to communicating with practitioners to I'm even teaching some of my other friends that are practitioners how to utilize AI to make things easier because the other part too is summarizing studies. Like when you read a study, oftentimes that's from scientist to scientist. And I've been in this space for a long period of time and I still have to stop and try and figure things out. So I like to use AI in order to dig down into the research to find articles that are around the subjects that we're teaching, but maybe I missed. I'm using it for marketing purposes. I'm using it for social media. I'm using it for, here's the key thing that I will say to this. We want to use AI to take care of the mundane tasks that need to be done that take people away from people. So what we really want to do in Rise Up is I want our people being connected with our clients, not having to sit in the background trying to do administrative stuff all the time. So if I can get AI to replace the mundane and give them back the opportunity to be with their clients and which I say become family and friends, that's how we're using AI.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Because I always hear people of all ages being scared of AI. They say that, oh, it's going to take up our jobs or anything. But I think it's if you look at the 80s, there were computers, then
Correct.
90s and 2000s, there was the internet, the smartphones. Like, every time, like people who have used it right from the
Correct.
age of typewriters, maybe, or
Correct. Correct. Correct.
anything new
The
has come, there has been an apprehension, but I think
Hey, look,
if
with
we,
everything good comes evil, right? So it's like when you have these things, people can use it for good and people can use it for bad. So I'm like, I'm gonna stick on the good side and use this in order to create a greater humanity. And I hope that other people will do the same thing because now people that are on our company, they have to use artificial intelligence. It just helps them become more productive. But you can't do it unchecked, right? So that's the key. So it's, hey, we still have to check these things. They're not perfect, I think it'll become part of our everyday life. If you're using an iPhone or an Android, you're already using AI.
Yeah. You don't even know that it's
That's
always
correct.
trying to hear what you're saying and
Correct.
give you customized ads and
Yep.
uh,
Siri is an AI, right? It's
yeah,
at the end of the day, half the little tasks you do in the back of your phone are AI that make your life more simple. So I just
exactly.
think people will utilize AI to make their life more productive and more enjoyable.
Well, absolutely. So, Mark, let's get into a little motivational mode or
Yeah,
preaching.
sure. Yeah. We spun off there.
Okay. So, Mark, three things. Okay, not three things, but what have you learned in your 8 years journey that you will advise people not to do? Okay, this is what don't do.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is don't give up. I understand that there is a key where people need to understand where to exit, right? There is that conversation. There are some projects that shouldn't be kept, and I think that's where it's like flowing like water. But I think if you find some sort of passion in that, don't give up. I'm always reminded of I think it was Think and Grow Rich, where they talked about the guy that was digging for gold and he stopped a foot before, sold it off. The guy who bought it from him digs one more foot and strikes a major vein of gold. And I'm like, every time I look at this, there were multiple opportunities for me to quit even this regenerative side because of different resistance points, but the passion drove it. And I will say this, I am one of those people that's blessed that gets to work in their passion. We always hear everybody talk about find out what you're passionate about and then work hard at it. Sometimes that passion just develops. Sometimes it's actually handed to you. It's because when I was in the aesthetic space, I used to try and find meaning of it. I'm like, I'm bringing a laser to somebody, but what am I really doing in their life? And I remember one time changing my phrase and going, I'm helping one psychology at a time. That's how I'm helping mankind. Because if I make them feel better about themselves and make them more confident, then they'll achieve more. But that was me just trying to make something up because I'm trying to go, I'm in medicine, but I don't really know how to explain my passion for this. And then all of a sudden, when you go through this type of life-changing experience, oh my goodness. That's where I fell into my passion. This is where I get to make major change. And I watch the bottlenecks that are happening because again, like I said, you have a scientist that doesn't have business acumen. You have great products that are development that are sitting on the shelves because nobody knows how to get them to market. And I'm like, I can be the intermediary because there's going to be companies that will be larger than ours that may take the products that we develop and then actually run them to market. But I will play a role somewhere, whether we're taking that distribution or whether or not we're just driving it through and getting in the hands of somebody much larger. It doesn't bother me as long as it changes humanity.
Awesome, awesome. And Mark, before we wind up, we'd just like to know what's been your happiest day in this whole Rise Up journey so far?
I think the first one was waking up from my heart transplant. That was the
No, I'm talking about the Rise Up. Once you
yes.
started Rise Up in your
Yes, yeah,
entrepreneurial.
Rise Up started after it. So it is when I think about the happiest moment, you know what? I will say this. I can't claim a moment. It's been a journey. And that journey I wouldn't give up for the world. It has had twists and turns, ups and downs, but there's just something about the fight. And you know what? And I will say this. These are probably the happiest moments. When I see people being healed with lifelong disease, like I dealt with, from the products that we develop. That's it. Our practitioners have a gift of healing, and all we're doing is giving them the tools. And when they adopt those tools and they integrate them, they do amazing things. Just even for myself, I became patient one
Yeah,
and used that as a way to create patient thousand. So,
awesome. Mark, we could have a lot of sessions on this, and
oh,
but right
sure,
now,
sure,
in the shortage of time,
sure.
we
No, no, no,
will.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. We would. I would like when I hear you speak, I feel okay. We can have multiple episodes on this. On each
Yes,
topic we can cover, and
yes,
there's so much to this regenerative medicine that
there
I think
is.
I myself need to learn. And coming from a non-science background, from a like you are from an accounting background, but
Correct.
you have managed to geek so much on regenerative that I thought you were like probably a PhD or something.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
That-
you just here's a crazy story about this, and you'll laugh at this. When I was in college, I thought, oh, I was only doing my associate's degree at the time, and I'm like, I think I want to become a doctor. When I was moving around, so I literally walked into an anatomy and physiology class. On the first day, the teacher goes, all right, I want you to memorize all the bones of the body, and we're gonna have a test on it on Friday. And I'm like, oh, hell no. And I walked out of that class and exited it immediately and then wound up getting myself connected into accounting. Then, as you look at this, life takes a funny turn because I left accounting and finance in order to go into medicine. And then this just became, I just dug in and fell in love with science. And at this point, I just got my nose in the books all the time.
I'm curious to know, is your accounting knowledge helping you somewhere in right now?
Yeah, you know what it does is I understand how to read financial statements. I understand how to manage books. I will say this. I joke with even my accountant. I go, you don't want me to do your tax returns, and you certainly don't want me to do mine. But when you do them, I know how to read it. I understand exactly what you're talking about. I understand the key metrics that we're dealing with. So when people that are much better in finance that are me, I can hold a conversation. But it is, you don't want me to be your financial planner either. But if you got a health issue, I want to connect you with somebody because we're probably helping them help you.
Yeah. And the way you were talking about regenerative, even this time and even last time, it made me forget for a fact that you have an accounting background.
Yes.
I would keep
Yes.
forgetting that.
I think a lot of it really kind of came down to is I went down the accounting route because when I went to the guidance counselor, I said, I feel the desire to be an entrepreneur. What's the route that I should take? And they were like, look, take accounting because at least you're going to understand the books and how to manage things. So they didn't have entrepreneurial studies back when I went to college. So at that point, it kind of became my entrepreneurial studies. But at the end of the day, life was a greater teacher than anything, but I feel like college did me a great service by connecting me to people and by teaching me how to learn. So it helped make me become a lifelong learner. And that's the other thing that I would tell everybody is be a lifelong learner. Never think that you've learned enough. That's the other part. I'm still learning today.
Thank you, Mark. And I really
You're
wish
welcome.
the best for Rise Up Regenerative. And thank
Yes.
you so much for sharing your story and let this mission continue. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. You've been a blessing. So thank you for bringing me on.